If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths, and sometimes heights, to ensure the power is always flowing. Which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Open Line host Patty Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Wednesday, August the 27th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Patty Daly. Beth Fagan's back in the producer's chair. You'll be speaking with Beth this morning when you pick up the phone to give us a shout and in the queue and on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. I think the phone lines are still blocked there, Beth. Let's see here. Beth, I think you should unlock the phone lines here, see if we can get some action going. All right, so let's check in at the U.S. Open. 5 Canadians were seeded, first time in the modern era. 1 knocked out, of course, our high seed, Vicky Mboko, but the other 4 have moved through to the second round, which is excellent news. What happened to Bianca Andreescu? So I know that, Leylah Fernandez has moved through on the women's side. Both Diallo and Felix Auger-Aliassime and Denis Shapovalov moved along on the men's side. But remember Andreescu, in 2019, she was the number 4 ranked player in the world. That year she won Indian Wells, hugely prestigious tournament. Won the Canadian Open, first female to win the Canadian Open in 50 years. Went on to win the U.S. Open in 2019 and gone by the wayside. Oh, just a random note, and I remember this for some reason. 1985, Mary Jo Fernandez became the youngest player to win at the U.S. Open. She was 14 years and 8 days old. 14 years and 8 days old winning at the Open. Okay. So there is a wildfire update coming this morning from the provincial government. It's going to be at 9:30 this morning. We will carry it live. It sort of shags up our approach insofar as breaks and stuff go. So we will indeed carry that. But a reminder, we will be back right after the presser to take your calls on any issue under the sun, including wildfire situation. So Paddy's Pond fire is out. Excellent news. Martins Lake under control, but Kingston remains out of control at still nearly around 11,000 hectares. Now, we know the RCMP are still investigating some of the folks that looted evacuated homes, stole ATVs and whatever the case may be. Now they have active monitoring in and around those evacuation zones on their own ATVs. So if you have any questions, hopefully they get answered by government representatives this morning at 9:30. If not, we'll try to get the information as best possible for you. All right, back to school happening pretty soon here, obviously. There was a back-to-school benefit announced yesterday, and the monies have flown to people who are on income support, every child $100 a head. Obviously a good thing. Then, you hear from Bridges to Hope and the Single Parent Association still needing so much more support, additional support, to fill the request for backpacks and all the school supplies they're in. It's amazing when you think about it. And I continue to hear from people who are in need of this type of support and talking about how great it will be for their children to be back in school with an opportunity to participate in Kids Eat Smart with a grab-and-go breakfast, school lunch association, and a hot lunch. It really does blow my mind and break my heart that in 2025, so many families rely on school not just for learning, but for eating. Truly amazing stuff. So if you can and have the capacity to make a donation to the Single Parents Association or Bridges to Hope, let's do it. Yesterday I mentioned, which I do probably every single year on the back-to-school time frame, is the concept of what it would mean for school uniforms. And I got plenty of uptake yesterday. Tons of it on social media, plenty of it in the email. Some people push back against it, saying, it removes the opportunity for someone to express who they are through their fashion. It's a funny thing to rely on, especially when you're a child, as opposed to level the playing field, the looking sharp, and all the rest of that can go with it. And, of course, the financial relief that families would feel knowing that they don't have to keep up with the Joneses. And they don't have to have the newest, coolest hoodie or shoes or sneakers, whatever the case may be. But if you want to take it on, we can do it. Okay. Also in the school-related matter, early childhood education. So the province announced yesterday the sanctioning another 574 new childcare spaces. That's, of course, all part of the $10 a day program. Spread across 25 centres across the Avalon Peninsula and into central Newfoundland. All right, we know additional capacity is absolutely required, and the waiting list is long. We hear from families that are in their second trimester of pregnancy already getting on the list for daycare, for childcare, for early childhood education. What we don't have in this particular announcement is what the net gain looks like. because that's the most important number. If you add 574 but you lost 100, we're only up 474. So I'd really like to see net gain numbers as a real benchmark as to what's going on. In addition to that, apparently, this is coming from an operator of some 25 years in the regulated childcare space. There was a startup grant to buy equipment, to modify the home, and apparently that's gone by the wayside. If that's true, that seems a little bit counterproductive or counterintuitive while we're trying to create more spaces to meet the demand, and that's the reality, so says this particular owner-operator of a regulated family home childcare. All right, so those are those particular numbers. If you want to get into it, let's do it. We've heard from people who are what I'll refer to as experts in the field, looking at things like early childhood education, knowing that a child's brain is 90% developed by the time they're 5 years of age. And so it's the concept of pre-K, pre-kindergarten. It's a good idea. Some schools do indeed see it implemented. But if you look around about the education aspect and the childcare aspect and early childhood education, if pre-K became the rule, and as many schools that can accommodate it, because not every school can, but if you took the bulk of 4-year-olds out of the daycare or early childhood education system, man, oh man, we'd really go a long way to freeing up spaces for more and more toddlers, for instance. So if you want to talk about it, we can do it. All right, stick with education, this time post-secondary education. So we know the new president and vice chancellor, Dr. Janet Morrison, came from Sheridan College. They're talking about a commitment to cut some $20.8 million. There were layoffs in the recent past. There were a couple of departments shut down. Well, the Harris Center and the Office of Public Engagement, both at Munn's Signal Hill campus, which does continue to beg the question as to whether or not that was required purchase and renovation at the behest of Memorial University. But anyway, when they refer to $20.8 million, it really feels like that's undercutting or underscoring just the state of affairs at Memorial University. So they've laid off a bunch of faculty. They've created a new position at VP of Finance. Dr. Morrison says she's not getting much pushback on that front. But, you know, I heard Geraldine Mackey ask her questions about what people refer to as administrative bloat, and you have to start there when you talk about efficiency, cost and otherwise. But 20.8, I mean, just even consider the maintenance deficit at Munn. It's hundreds of millions of dollars. So 20.8 might be a meaningful starting point, but certainly doesn't get anywhere close to putting Munn back on the fiscal financial rails, right? So we've got to get it right at Memorial University. That one is absolutely for sure. On that front, look, every discipline that people choose in an institution of higher learning can be important into the future, whether it's their quest for knowledge or thirst for knowledge or to prepare them for the global job market. But I would imagine a lot of people look at, you know, outside the co-op programs that are extremely top quality, engineering and otherwise, and in the School of Business. It's in the disciplines regarding preparing healthcare professionals. This one I knew was coming. We've talked about it in the past. We're going to talk about it again this morning. Doctors, primary care. So they're announcing a big historic announcement in Nova Scotia just, I guess, about a week ago. Talking about at the Cape Breton Medical Campus. So here's how it's going to work there. This is what it said in the news release. The inaugural class includes 30 Nova Scotians who, under return of service agreement, have committed to practice family medicine in rural areas of the province for 5 years after they graduate. There is to transfer money into Memorial University that we all know about. There is indeed a standalone budget for the School of Medicine. But some of that money does indeed come from the provincial government, is my understanding. So I've been told constantly in the past that return of service agreements don't work. Well, the fact of the matter is they can. With all the new doctors coming in the fold that have been recruited, there's a return of service agreement in place, 4 or 5 years. So is it not realistic that whether or not we do what they're doing in Nova Scotia or what they're doing in Alberta to set up rural remote sites for schools of medicine, for primary care training and education, with return of service agreements for hard-to-staff spots in the various provinces or the respective provinces, something that I think has got to be part of the conversation here. Do you think? And add to it, you know, like what Jim Dinn is saying and others are saying, is that everyone graduating from a discipline where there are gaps, and there's plenty of them in the world of healthcare, is that every single person, as soon as their bum hits the seat, they're in constant contact with the recruiter at NL Health Services throughout the entirety of their education and offers at the heels. If we have gaps, how are we not offering and making sure that the Nova Scotians of the world, the Saskatchewans, don't get here aggressively recruiting our soon-to-be graduates? So anyway, return of service agreements in the world of doctors, what do you think? All right. So we know that Premier Legault and Premier Hogan and various representatives of both provinces and utilities met yesterday. So it wasn't just the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding, which of course is a major issue, and it should be for everyone listening to the program because it has super long-term implications. And we can get into some of the questions. About all the authority being held by Hydro-Quebec to develop Gull Island or not. They say they're going to. It's $3.5 billion they'll pay for our equity stake, and they'll pay us $1.5 billion if they don't develop it. There's no reason to believe they won't. But projected revenues, the length, the term of the contract itself, electricity pricing, the question that people are asking, we can indeed be talking about it, and we should be talking about it here on the show. Couple of things. So talk about independent oversight. Who exactly would be that independent oversight entity? And what do you think their role could or should be? And also, I get asked repeatedly about whether or not this should go to a referendum. Conceptually, that sounds like it makes sense, but I don't even know if I'm armed with enough actual information and 75-year foresight to whether or not my vote would have any merit in a referendum. And I'm not going to be insensitive or mean to listeners and say you don't know enough about the vote on it, but let's just be realistic and think about how many people might indeed just vote it down because of the other side of the table being Quebec. You have to think of plenty of people. Quebec has long been the boogeyman in this province, understandably so, and possibly rightfully so. But the concept of a referendum on that, I guess the referendum will indeed be the upcoming election, which is going to be called, you have to imagine, sooner than later. They also talk about critical minerals and joint opportunities in the Labrador Trough. I've brought this up, thousands of times over the years. Regardless of what anyone thinks of the province of Quebec, those opportunities for those critical minerals is, for all intents and purposes, a shared consideration. So where the conversation went on that front, I don't know. Then you hear from Tony Wakeham and others saying, what happened to transparency? I want the information. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall at that particular meeting yesterday. Is it even in our best interest to negotiate in public, in full, on camera? I don't really know if that's the best idea, but I'd certainly like to know more about where we are. Even to use Premier Hogan's own words, an aggressive timeline being next April to get this MOU into a definitive agreements, of which there might be 10 or 12 of them. But anyway, you want to talk about it, we're more than happy to do exactly that here this morning. And you have to believe that the election call is coming sooner or later. I see Kelly Bladuke, political scientist at Memorial University, talking about all the recent announcements. Back to school benefit and, of course, ongoing meetings regarding the Upper Churchill, childcare spaces, and there's a variety of others. So, I think his point was that there should be more in place insofar as rules regarding timing of announcements and calling of elections. This tactic is as old as time, isn't it? Whether it be a fire truck in every hall or a new merry-go-round in every playgroom, and whether it be Upper Churchill momentum, or whether it be childcare spaces, or whether it be back-to-school benefits. This is always going to be the case. Does that really move a whole lot of voters? I'm not so sure. People are quite likely going to vote with their pocketbooks. That's kind of how things have been going pretty much for the last decades. It'll be cost of living issues, even if some of the cost of living issues that we are dealing with are out of the hands of the provincial governments right across the country, but it's how people feel. Will there be focus on job creation numbers, which are pretty poor in this province over, say, the last decade? Or whether it be about some of these announcements, or whether it will simply be about cost of living, even if some of that has no control by the provincial government, that's how people think and feel. Right? It's how you feel about your lot in life. It's how you feel about your current circumstances or predicament or opportunities into the future. So anyway, Mr. Bladuke, if you're listening, we're happy to have you on the program. All right, A couple of quickies. We'll take the break a little bit early. Canada Post seems to be on its last legs. It really does. Parcel numbers are way down. I'll give some context here. So for starters, in the second quarter of this year, they are bleeding money, losing $407 million in just the second quarter alone. Parcel revenue down by $288 million. Canada Post delivered 25 million fewer packages in the second quarter than it did a year earlier. So since the start of 2025, parcel revenue was down nearly $500 million. Is there any putting that toothpaste back in the tube? What's Canada Post going to look like into the future? They can't continue to lose that kind of money. They simply cannot. And the trend is not going to go back to traditional, the way we traditionally dealt with and used Canada Post. So they used to be a self-sustaining outfit for a long, long time. It's just a few years ago they had to go to the federal government for support, and now we'll have to be back at that so-called trough into the future. But what replaces Canada Post? I hear people say blow it up all the time, but for plenty of the country, geographically speaking, Canada Post is the only game in town. We can't make UPS go to the so-called last mile to service Canadians who are outside of their general service area, but Canada Post handles that mail delivery, that parcel delivery. So where to from here? Because, boy, oh boy, $407 million loss in just the second quarter this year. Parcel revenue down $500 million since the beginning of 25. Unbelievable stuff. All right. Let's see here. Oh, the Tony Humby trial starts today. First witness will be called. Of course, facing some 72 charges. First on police radar back as long ago as 2007. He and Bruce Escott arrested on the same day in 2023. Mr. Escott, of course, has pled guilty to his charges in a sworn agreed statement of facts where I assume he's used Tony Humby's name as his co-conspirator here. The other charges, including human trafficking, are set for a different trial. Those charges have only been laid twice in the province's history. Both went away before it came to final verdict. But the concept here is we'll find out whether or not Tony Humby is found guilty or not of the alleged crimes, even though, yeah. And it's the thought of an inquiry into the Department of Child, Youth and Family Services and, yes, law enforcement about how we deal with these types of allegations. How many young people could have been spared if the allegations are proven to be true, could have been spared the evil perpetrated upon them by the Escotts and the Humbies of the world. Anyway, you want to talk about it, we can do it. We're on Twitter, we're VOCM Open Line, follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. Let's take a break. When we come back, public transportation in the queue, and then you. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 1. Jenny, you're on the air.
Oh, good morning, Patty. I got a good news story to share with you this morning.
Terrific.
I grew up in Carbonear, and we used to have a daily bus go in and out, Fury's bus, you know. Mm-hmm. And when I moved home 12 years ago, there's no public transportation at all. Well, lo and behold, 2 months ago, this gentleman from St. John's has started a daily transportation. He's got a 14-seater bus, and the seats are so comfortable. And he even applies a senior discount, because I know some seniors that have had to pay $300 to go into St. John's for a doctor's appointment because they had to hire a taxi, and it was $150 in, $150 out. So I was so happy to share this, and the phone number is 709-2-BAYHOP. So if people wouldn't remember the number, they can go under BAYHOP. And I just feel like it should be, publicized so that more people know about it.
Absolutely, and BAYHOP is a great name, and lucky to get that as it refers to their phone number, too, so that's good stuff. So, Jenny, you've used this service, have you?
Yes, I have, actually. I still have my car, but, I'm getting more mature all the time, Patty. In fact, I'm celebrating a milestone birthday today, and I got up early to talk to you, and I'm being taken out for breakfast, and I'm all excited. I'm hoping my son and his wife are going to surprise me today and come from Alberta. But I'm not going to share my age, because if I tell you, I'd have to kill you,
Don't do me any favors, Jenny.
Pardon?
Don't do me any favors. So I won't ask you your age.
Patty, I listen to you all the time, and I love you. And I told the bus driver I'm going to phone Patty on Wednesday, and he's listening too, and I'm sure he appreciates the exposure. So the number again is 709-222-9467 or 2-BAYHOP.
I love it. Just a couple of questions for you. So what are you going to get for breakfast?
My darling, I'm going to this restaurant in Carbonear. It's called Crooked Sills. Uh-huh. You know how when we lived on the mainland, we said crooked, that would be criminal. But in Newfoundland, we're different. So I don't know, he must have been cranky or something. But anyway, buddy, what a breakfast you get. You get 2 eggs, 2 slices of homemade bread, They make it right there in the restaurant.
Nice.
And then you get 2 out of 3, like bacon, ham, or sausage. And home fries, and I mean, they are home fries. They're not the ones that you buy in the fridge. And then my niece has invited me for supper, and I got a funny feeling because my son always sends my birthday card well in advance. And every day I go to the mail, wishing I won't get a card because that would give me a clue that he might be coming. So I'll be over the moon if he comes and surprises me today.
No doubt you will be. So right off the bat, happy birthday to you. I hope you have a terrific day. Where does your son and wife live in Alberta?
In a little town called Crowshoe. It's about an hour and a half outside of Calgary.
Yeah, I know where it is. That's because we lived in Alberta for quite a long time. Listen, enjoy your breakfast. Happy birthday. Have a tremendous day, and thanks for letting us know about the bus service.
Yes, God bless you. Thank you for letting me share it. And
Anytime.
you have a lovely day as well, Patty.
You too. Thank you very much. Stay in touch, Jenny.
God bless you. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so just in an effort to make sure we kept the presser on time, let's take a quick break. When we come back, myself and Brian Medore will talk us to the press conference. Blair Traynor is running Award 2. He's also in the queue. Gary wants to talk about an interesting thing that happened in Marystown just this week. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the program. I'm joined in studio by Brian Medore. Brian, good morning.
Good morning, Patty.
So, not sure what to expect here today, but of course the largest looming question is not only the status of the Kingston fire, but what's next steps. We know we've moved some supports from Carbonear Academy to the splash pad in Harbour Grace, but the next steps for evacuees comes with the back-to-school complications or the concept of rebuilding. Still a lot on the line.
An awful lot. They've got the educational piece kind of straightened out. Kids to go to school in Beta Verde, so that's straightened out. That component of it. Now we have to, people are just going to be wondering where to next. As you mentioned, there's going to have to be some kind of a cleanup process, an assessment, an update on perhaps the Newfoundland Power situation. It's all on the line here this morning.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about rebuilding Cabot Academy if and when the province chooses to do that. We heard from a veteran of the construction industry working in it for some 4 decades. By the time you clean up that site and by the time you do the engineering and go through all the various steps towards building a school, that's years down the road before that can be satisfied. He also went on to say, though, local contracting companies in the area can maybe build a couple of turnkey homes per year. And we're talking about the possibility to rebuild hundreds of structures. So I don't know what's coming on that front from the Premier today, but I suppose all eyes will be on putting and deploying the resources into that Kingston fire. Now that Paddy's Pond is out and Martin's Lake is under control. So that's the good news. Seems like we've turned the corner in a positive effect. But for evacuees, and there's one in the queue, Carol's in the queue on line number 1. She's an evacuee. She's got questions.
And even in the fire and flood restoration people, they're really going to be in over their heads. They're going to have to be called in. Structural engineers. We saw it in Hurricane Fiona, a significant labor shortage to try to put the buildings back in place. It was over 100 in the southwest coast, and we don't know where the numbers are going to lead us here in Conception Bay North, but I think they're going to be greater than what we saw in Port aux Basques area.
Yeah, and look, I understand why it's important for the province to give information as often as they see fit, and then today I guess they decided at 9:30 this morning, and not to be mean-spirited, but what we need is actual hard-called facts, information that can be helpful. It is important to continue to thank the volunteers, firefighters and otherwise, those are opening up their arms to welcome people into their community. But hopefully it's a bit light on platitudes and heavy on actual advice and support this morning.
And whenever they do not have that live briefing, Patty, I know they're kind of hoping to have every 2 or 3 days. They didn't have a live briefing on the weekend, a Facebook announcement by the Premier. But when they don't have that live briefing, we do hear about it in the newsroom. There's plenty of feedback. Why is it not on today? Why is there no live briefing? The people out there do want a live briefing, even if maybe there's not a whole lot new to tell. They still do want that live briefing.
Here we go. Let's go to the Premier.
Here, joined today again by Minister Korab, Deputy Minister of Forestry Jamie Chippett, and online again Minister Haggie. Just start this morning with an update on the status of the 3 wildfires here in the province. Martin Lake wildfire is estimated to be 1,633 hectares and is now classified as under control. We still have 10 ground crew from our province continuing to monitor hotspots in this fire, and a helicopter is available for bucketing if required. Cabin owners may notice some smoke in the area coming in the next number of weeks as there continues to be hot spots there. And as I said, it's still classified as under control and it is not out yet. The smoke is normal and open flames or thick smoke should be reported immediately if anybody does see it. Forest resource roads previously closed in the Martin Lake area due to the wildfires reopened yesterday, and this includes access to Martin Lake, Miguel Lake, Great Rattling Brook, and Rushy Pond. So some positive news related to the Martin Lake fire. Paddy's Pond wildfire yesterday, this great news, has been declared out. So that is great news. I know we're all very happy to hear that. That was very scary few days, of course, with regards to that wildfire moving close to subdivisions here in the St. John surrounding area. And again, just want to thank all the firefighters, all the pilots, all the staff, everybody who did incredible work to get that fire under control and now out. I've met with a number of fire departments in the St. John's region over the last few days, and they all sent individuals and they all worked together. Regardless of where they came from, whether it was Pooch Cove, Torbay, Witless Bay, St. John's, CBS, surrounding areas, and they all just did tremendous work. And they all spoke about how some of them have worked in this field for decades and never saw fires like the ones they saw at Paddy's Pond and CBN over the last few weeks. So tremendous effort, tremendous bravery, and again, can't thank them enough. As for the Kingston fire, nearly 35 millimeters of rain yesterday, so that provided a strong day working on hot spots on that fire. We had 75 ground crew members from here and British Columbia with assistance again from local fire departments to make good progress on the fire yesterday. Of course, the steady rain did help, and it was a constant flow of moisture to this wildfire. But unfortunately, air assets were unable to fly yesterday due to the weather, smoke, and low ceiling. It does remain an active fire, and lingering smoke is continuing to affect mostly the western boundary. The incident management team reports steady decrease in overall fire activity. However, this is still classified as out of control, and it remains estimated at about 10,095 hectares. We'll continue to monitor it throughout the day. Hopefully some air assets can get there as soon as possible this morning, but the weather may cause a delay in getting there, so we'll continue to monitor that as well. I want to speak specifically to the people in Conception Bay North. Throughout the past number of weeks, we have continued to let them know that we are committed. Our government is committed to assist them in recovery efforts, and I know a number of individuals have now had the opportunity to return home or to return to their communities, having the evacuation orders lifted. And that's the first stage in assessing what recovery is going to look like as we move forward. And the Cabinet Committee has done a lot of work already, thanks to Minister Korab for leading that, and they will continue to do a lot of work, not just over the short term, but the medium and long term as well. And we just want to provide an update today on the recovery efforts for evacuees. We will include additional financial assistance and supports for households, businesses, and employees. This support is in addition to the one-time payment of $500 that has already been made a few weeks ago. And to date, 1,769 payments have been issued, which covers 3,324 total households. We've also provided $30,000 special assistance grant earlier this summer to Adams Cove, Blackhead, Broad Cove, that community as well for the earlier forest fire. Effective today, however, we are also providing an additional $500 emergency financial assistance payment to each household that was ordered to evacuate from a primary resident due to a wildfire for more than 14 days. This will further help those who have been impacted from the wildfires and assist in purchasing more essentials like food and personal supplies as they continue to be unable to return to their homes and communities. For those who received the first $500 payment, if you've already registered, of course, you do not need to register again. You'll receive the payment in the same way that you received the first one. A reminder, if you haven't registered with the Red Cross, or if you registered but didn't receive payment, please call the Red Cross. We're also announcing today new additional assistance in the form of temporary housing supports, financial assistance and support for small and medium-sized businesses that have been impacted by the wildfires, and for employees who face disruption from work. And this support reflects our ongoing commitment to the people of Conception Bay North, and it builds on the supports and partnerships that are already in place. As we've said, this is a collaborative approach, and it involves multiple departments, community and emergency partners, organizations, and of course the residents of the community to help address the evolving needs as we move forward. And to every resident and business owner affected, we will continue to stand with you. We are working around the clock to ensure you have the support you need today and tomorrow and in the road ahead as we continue to look at recovery. So with that, I'll turn it to Minister Korab, who's chair of our Cabinet Committee, to talk about specific details of the additional supports and assistance that I mentioned.
Thank you, Premier. As the Premier mentioned, the support we are announcing today is on top of the previous supports already announced. We are building on that. With the Conception Bay North fire, we know that individuals are now turning their mindset to temporary accommodations. For those with primary residence that are uninhabitable and uninsured, we are providing temporary housing assistance. This includes $1,000 per household per month for those that can find accommodations and stay with family or friends in the community. If you need to seek temporary rental accommodations, we are providing $1,500 per household per month to assist with these costs. In the event that these households cannot find either private or rental options for the short term, Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation will assist them in securing placements and licensing establishments in the hospitality industry. We also know that the impacts in the community are not just on households, they are on businesses also. To help, we are providing a one-time evacuation business stipend for impacted businesses. This includes $1,500 for businesses with employees from 2 to 10 and $2,500 for businesses from 10 to 99 employees. Employers operating in the Conception Bay North who have employees who live in the region will be eligible for 42-week wage subsidy. This is an increase from the typical 28 subsidy. The Work Supports Program allocation is being increased from $1,000 to $2,000 per person to help businesses with such things to replace work, tools, equipment, and attire. We are also extending the program to self-employed individuals who are looking to restart their operations. An employment resource team is being set up at the Carbonear Employment Centre at 17 Industrial Crescent in Carbonear to support those employees who have been impacted by these wildfires. The Job Creation Partnership Program will also reopen for applications with the focus on community remediation, forestry, and tree planting. If you have any questions on these financial assistance pieces and programs, we encourage people to go to the website, on the government website, which will have all the information there. So that's gov.nl.ca. It'll be on our alerts page. So click on the yellow banner and you can visit that at gov.nl.ca/alerts. As well, we have folks on the ground at the Splash Center in Harbour Grace who have all this information to help residents that may need a little more attention and want to talk to someone in person. We want you to know you're not alone. You are our priority, and we are here for you every step of the way. I'd like to close by saying these actions are a direct result of our committee's work, which we'll be meeting again in the coming days. We've met a few times already. And those that have felt these imaginable impacts of the wildfires, this work will continue, will be ongoing. And I also want to thank the residents that have reached out to me personally through social media, through email. I just wanted those people to know I'm listening, we hear you, and the things you're saying to us and the things you want to see in your community going forward, we will implement those. We'll work with you as you're going to directly shape how your communities will look going forward. So this committee is about partnership, as well as working hand in hand with these stakeholders, with the residents and the communities and organizations, and we're committed to delivering real support and meaningful solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And today we're also announcing $100,000 for wildland coveralls for the volunteer fire departments throughout the province who contributed to the wildfire response over the past month. As we've said, every day, volunteer firefighters are putting their lives and have put their lives on the line and set aside personal responsibilities to protect their communities and neighbors across our province. And I know and we understand this summer has been very challenging for everyone involved in the fire service across the province. And that's why we're very pleased to provide funding to purchase these wildland suits, and we will continue to work with our incredible volunteer fire departments, as we always have, to ensure they have everything they can to do their job safely. I'll ask Minister Haggie if he has any comments.
Thank you very much, Premier. Just to follow on, excuse me, from your comments about the coveralls, I mean, I think it doesn't require much imagination to think about what it feels like staggering around in 40 to 50 pounds of bunker gear in the temperatures and humidity we've had when the fires have been at their height. And the wildland fire suits are designed for that kind of environment. There are 35 departments who sent people, and it's the people we're trying to look after. Letters have gone out as late as yesterday afternoon to those departments, inviting them to let us know their needs, so we can kit out one full crew of their department for any future wildland events that we have. While we're on the subject of equipment, I think, again, social media is full of fake news about how apparently there have been changes to firefighting equipment funding. Well, there certainly have. In 2021, the budget was $2.1 million, and in this fiscal year, it is $8.4 million. That's the change, not the allegations that have been made on social media. Those are all matters of public record. They're in public accounts, a committee chaired by the opposition. So I would draw your attention to that, and it's been evenly distributed across the province. The other things of note is that the AILA Centre in Lower Island Cove will close today at 5 o'clock. Its work seems to be done. The Salvation Army Mobile Command, however, will remain in the area for some time yet for those residents who need further assistance. And as Minister Corab referenced, the Carbonear Centre is now closed, and that has moved to the Splash Centre in Harbour Grace in order to facilitate cleaning and minimise any disruption to the return of students after the long weekend. So again, I'd close by saying, be kind to your neighbours, be kind, and stay safe. So thank you very much, Premier.
Thank you, Minister. Any questions?
Is there any update on the cause of the fire or the investigation that's been taking place? Because we're still getting a lot of questions about that.
No update, certainly from my end. I know, as we said on day 1 or day 2 when we were here, that the RCMP were certainly looking.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Bigland FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 2. Say good morning to one of the candidates running in Ward 2 here in the city of St. John's. That's Blair Traynor. Blair, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks, Patty, for taking my call again.
No problem.
I was going to quickly introduce myself. Blair Traynor, running for Ward 2 City Council. And just what I want to talk about today is tax savings. I did hear your preamble about voters are going to vote with their pocketbook. So I also want to talk about some solutions, and I want to provide some education for the people of St. John's about how we can save some taxes, or how I can save some taxes with working with the city council to try to figure it out.
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to save the city residents between $500 and $800 a year. I know you're a big sports fan, and I've after going door to door, and some people have after talking about the inconsistency of our sports teams here. And right now we offer a substantial subsidy of $7 million to the Mary Brown Center. So that's about $63 a person. And we also have an increased $15 water tax. We also have a capital investment of $25 million this year, which is $150 a person. There's another thing called the regional development for municipalities, which is $700,000. And as you know, and I'm sure people have after going in about this, but there's a property tax increase for homes $250,000 to $450,000. I was talking to a resident on New Gower Street, and in the last 5 years, her property tax is after going up from $2,000 to $4,000. So that's an increase of $200 a month. Yeah, and so like some of the solutions for me is seeking privatization for the Mary Brown Center and having some serious dialogue. So obviously need to be some subsidy, because that's how every capital city across the country works. And we need to explore some progressive revenue sources, sources, and not just depend on property tax increases, because it just keeps going up.
So a couple of things. Let me hop in here.
Yeah,
so
go ahead. Yeah.
Selling off the Mary Brown Center, first you'd have to actually go to tender to see who would like to take on the operations. And secondly, would that mean that it's a complete standalone operation with zero government subsidy? Like, the money does flow to St. John's Sports and Entertainment, but that's more than Mary Brown Center. We have to remember that, because it also includes the convention center, which people kind of lose sight of that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I understand that concept. And, when the city tells me that they don't think it's a good idea because they don't know if an incoming private operator would be aggressive in trying to bring in action in events at the Mary Brown Center, which makes no sense to me. If I'm in private business, I'm going to be as aggressive as possible to make money at Mary Brown Center and the convention center. So, but I do think there's maybe been a bit of a corner that has been turned at St. John's Sports and Entertainment. It looks like there's been pretty busy activity when compared to years past, so I wonder what that will mean or how that'll translate to the next transfers of dollars from the municipal budget into that operation. Then you talk about other revenue streams, such as what? Because municipalities basically rely on a couple of things: development fees and other fees and property tax. So what are you talking about for additional revenue streams?
Well, that's a good question. Like, I'm a political science major, so I'm all about critical thinking, and I'm all about, collaborating and advocating and trying to bring smarter people together than me, but also just exploring not just across like Atlantic Canada, but Canada and other places of the world, and how we can bring other revenue sources into St. John's. Because right now, just putting the brunt tax, property tax up on the citizens, it just doesn't feel good. And from what I've heard from a CBC interview, homes that are say in the $500,000 range. I remember hearing Ron Ellsworth talk about this. He said that those homes, based on the formula, those homes are not. There was no necessary increases because those homes aren't as active on the real estate market. So that's I'm not we just need to bring other people in, and we need to figure out other ways other than just increase in property tax.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily how that works. It's between your property assessment and the mill rate. So that impacts every residence. Doesn't matter if it's a home worth $250,000 or $750,000. So we all saw the increase. Across the board, it was about an average 13% last go around.
Okay, yeah. So, when I was just speaking to the resident on New Gower Street, I'm just talking about one person here. So you're looking at, in the last 5 years, this is a cold, hard fact, like you had said, I think you had just said about firefighting situation. We need some cold, hard facts, right? So the fact is that this resident's property tax has gone from $2,000 to $4,000. So are we just going to continue with that trend and then competing with inflation? And then I'm not even going to get into Muskrat Falls and Newfoundland Power and the increases. It's just, how can people in St. John's maintain this increase of money coming out of our pockets? How are we going to maintain this? It's not feasible for people to live.
Well, as a resident of St. John's, I think we are really approaching some pretty unfortunate levels of taxation, no doubt about it. Now, and this is not defending the budget and or the city, but there were a couple of really key items in the most recent budget that saw this particular hike, like fleet replacement. Huge money spent on snow clearing fleet and garbage collection and those types of things. Hopefully that is the exception, not the rule. So I don't know if we're going to see that type of capital expenditure on those two fronts, because that was a huge line item in the budget that resulted in a big spike in my taxes. So I like where you're coming from when you talk about some controls at the city level. Anything else you want to offer this morning while we have you, Blair?
No, I just, I hope people, when they go to the voting stations, they consider what I'm presenting about tax savings and me as an individual. So, just keep an open mind and maybe not set your vote to a particular person. I think it's really important to explore all platforms in our ward and consider all options.
Always a good idea. Appreciate the time. I wish you good luck, Blair.
All right. Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Patty.
All right. Let's keep going. Let's go to line number 3. Gary, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Nice to hear your voice again. Listen, I heard something on the news. I don't know, was the main news about some in the Maritimes area. I think maybe it was in Newfoundland. There was a Japanese rocket sent up into space and piggybacked the Canadian satellite up into space for us. And that satellite going to be used for help, even looking down from space and helping, like technology of spotting the hot spots for fires and stuff like that. Do you have any update on that?
Sure. Nordspace is the organization, the company that had the first Canadian commercial rocket launch, and it happened yesterday from St. Lawrence, which is pretty interesting stuff. Now, I actually had the CEO of Nordspace on this program talking about what they do. It's pretty small rocket, and it has a suborbital launch, which is also important. It's low altitude flight. They carry very small payloads, but it is fascinating. Canada's space sovereignty is part of this equation, and it's part of this conversation. So they plan to do this relatively frequently. Yesterday was a test of the launch vehicle, so we'll see what the results were. I haven't heard anything on that front quite yet.
Oh, well, yeah, because I know you're interested in stuff like that, too, because you talk about even over in BC where they're doing stuff with drones, all this new technology, because we're in fast-paced technology now. Man, anything that can be done to help us take care of floods and fires and stuff like that, I think we have to go for it, right?
Yeah, they talk about the gateway to space. Canada's first operational spaceport is what they're considering in St. Lawrence. The rocket they fired yesterday was the Taiga rocket. They're also talking about bringing in another type, which is called the Tundra rocket, which is bigger, has different launch angle, can carry larger payloads. So I suppose it's probably an excellent idea for us to go back to Nordspace to talk about what they learned yesterday in the first ever commercial space launch from Canada.
Yeah, because you have Dave Willing on in today. You have a lovely lady. I talked to her about. You got a wonderful lady producing the show today. So when I talked about this with her, she understood what I was talking about. I says, like, Patty's our eyes in Newfoundland. Like, he knows more about this technology than I do. I have no idea I don't even want to try to look for apps or whatever. It's like the old song. I saw it on the radio because I listened to the voice on the radio, and that's where I get my updates, and I really appreciate it, Patty.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it. And I don't pretend to know a whole lot about the suborbital launch of the Taiga rocket, but we did have Nord Stream on to talk about their plans, and I suppose we should give them a beat to actually understand what they learned yesterday, what information was gleaned from that first test launch, and I'm going to see if I'll reach out to them, see if they have opportunity to come on as soon as they have some information they'd like to share.
Oh, that would be wonderful, because I think, that's really made me excited. I thought, man, because I thought, well, that technology is going to help out with a lot of stuff, putting that satellite up into space, and they can use that for a lot of things, just to benefit us human beings down here on the planet.
Absolutely. There's, people have questions about the amount of money spent on going to space, even though plenty of research that had real-life implications on Earth has been done and executed in space. I appreciate the time, Gary. We'll reach out to Nord Stream, see if they have time for us.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Patty. You have a wonderful day. Oh, yeah, and I was so happy to hear the lovely lady, that Jenny. Happy birthday to her. She made me laugh this morning.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah, okay. Bye now.
Bye, Gary. All right, there you go. Yeah, so it is pretty interesting. We actually talked with Nord Stream about why St. Lawrence, and they had pretty pragmatic reasons about simply geographical location, obviously. So, yeah, Canada's first commercial rocket launch yesterday, St. Lawrence. Cool. Let's take a break. When we come back, plenty show left for you. John's in the queue to talk about the hospital out in Carbonear. What about it? We'll find out. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Bigland FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show, and thanks to some listeners in and around St. Lawrence. The launch didn't happen yesterday due to weather. Now tentatively scheduled for tomorrow. Appreciate the information. Let's go to line number 1. John, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning
How
to
are
you.
you this morning?
Doing okay. How about you?
Not too bad, boy. I was in Carbon there last week. I was in for a knee replacement, right? The first day I was there, right, they forgot to feed me. The guy next to me, he called his wife, and his wife come in and brought me cold plates, and she brought me drinks. She wouldn't take nothing for it, right? So I just wanted to send a thank you to them. But then we couldn't wash ourselves because they had no hot water on the floor. So I was in there for 5 days. This missus, by the guy's wife, Ken Crocker's wife, she used to bring in hot water while we were able to wash ourselves. Isn't that pretty bad for this time and age?
It is. What's the problem with the hot water? Did anyone tell you?
I asked a few girls, they said it's the plumbing. So I said, gee, the plumbing. I said, sir, you only go from one floor to the next, you find out the problem and you fix it. She said, it's going on for years.
Yeah.
That's what you told me. Right? But like I said, all the nurses and everyone were on the floor. You couldn't ask for no better. Right?
Yeah, that's a good thing. I will see if I can't get some specific information from the Carbonear Hospital as to what exactly is wrong with the plumbing and what they're doing about it and the timeline to get it back online, so I can do that for you.
It's been for years now, right?
Yeah, no, apparently so.
Right. And like I said, the taps are there. You can't turn them off. They're drip, drip, drip the whole night. Right? It's just unreal. Right? So like I said, they were going to build new hospitals and everything else. Why don't they fix the ones they got first?
That's a really good point. And things like a faucet that's dripping, that's a pretty fundamental fix. If there's large-scale plumbing problems, that's another thing.
Right? I may have fixed that in a couple of minutes myself. You know what I mean? But unreal. I couldn't believe it. And like I had to get a missus from Carbonear to bring us in hot water where we could wash ourselves.
Yeah. I'm not so sure what to say about it other than I can try to do some follow-up but with the hospital and with NL Health Services. I mean, a dripping faucet, for the most part, that's probably a washer, and that's a pretty fundamental fix, or whether or not the taps are loose or whatever, but we should be able to figure that out.
Anyway, and they should be able to figure out how come there's no hot water. You got a hot water boiler, or you got a hot water tank, or is radiation hot water? If it's on the 4th floor, and it's not on the 5th, so get it between the two of them.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear it. How's the recovery going from the knee replacement?
Well, it's a little bit rough this time. It's the second one. The first one's pretty good, but this one's a little bit rougher. But day by day, it'll get better.
So I thought we were doing a lot of these types of surgeries these days with minimal stay in the hospital. So how long have you been there? Sorry?
I've been there since Thursday. I got out yesterday afternoon.
Okay. Well, I wish you well in your recovery, John, and let me follow up with the water issue.
Yes, please.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Patty.
You're welcome, John. Good luck.
Okay,
right, there you go. Bye-bye. Let's keep rolling. Let's go to line number 3. Jeff, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning.
I wanted to call in about the Upper Churchill MOU.
Sure.
Well, yesterday I heard a soundbite on the news here, John Hogan, and he stated that the upcoming deal for the Upper Churchill is the fall election.
Our connection is pretty weak. Jeff, could you just shuffle around a little bit, see if we can't get a clearer connection here.
How's this?
A little bit better. Let's go.
Yeah, so yesterday I heard a soundbite from Premier John Hogan stating that the Upper Churchill deal was the biggest election issue for the upcoming fall election, and I would agree with that. But he went on to say that the two choices are to proceed with a deal with the Liberals, and he figures that's what a majority of people want, or put the whole deal in jeopardy with the PCs as they would like to have a pause. And that's where I feel it's not accurate.
What in particular isn't accurate, Jeff?
So I think that a majority of people that have been following along and trying to keep informed, they really want a third-party independent review to produce some sort of report on how they feel the deal adds up. Because right now, all we have are government agencies and government telling us it's an amazing deal. and an opposition that really don't know. And we've been down this road before, but what we really need are independent third-party experts to review it and to report back in a brief, understandable summary on whether or not they feel in this current economic climate if that deal is good or not. I mean, that's what I think a majority of people really want.
I don't dispute it, but here's my question. Is an analysis of what in particular, because, if we're asking someone, is this a good deal? Would we say, for instance, bring in 3 independent bodies, Deloitte and Touche and Goldman Sachs and TD or whoever? And what happens if we get 3 different opinions? Because that's the trick for my book. Look, I want this to be done right. I hope that every I is dotted and every T is crossed and we maximize the value for the people of this province. 100%, obviously. But we might be just asking someone for an opinion. And it's hard to know what was on the table from either side, where compromises or mutual beneficial agreements were brokered. Like, I don't know. And I don't even know how that independent oversight might work. And do you think it's inaccurate for the Premier to say that the deal might be on hold, or whatever the right phrase is, if and when the Tories win the next election?
I think that Quebec is very bullish on the deal, and I don't think that they would walk away. They would pursue it even with the PCs. So for the Premier to put pressure on the deal, saying that if the PCs get in, the whole deal is in jeopardy, I think he's overplaying that hand.
Yeah, I don't know if the deal would be in jeopardy. Plus, I know people don't want to consider the fact that there's 2 sides negotiating here, but would a pause be something that would be acceptable to Hydro-Quebec and the province of Quebec? Because it might be something we want. And if that means people think we should walk away from it in full, if Hydro-Quebec or the Premier Legault or whoever says, unacceptable, we're walking away, which I'm not so sure they will, because they need the power. I mean, they absolutely do. Legault has said as much out loud. They have rejected a bunch of proposals, industrial and commercial. Why? Because they didn't have the power. So they're a willing dance partner here. How much more can be squeezed out of them? I don't know, but it's an excellent question.
But you've had experts on your show, real top-level experts, Vardy, Des Sullivan, and to a man, they've all agreed that the deal could be better, yet the government are trying to ram this thing through, and even the inquiry from Muskrat Falls stated that any deal over $50 million requires third-party oversight, which they seem to have bypassed. I just don't understand. And even if we didn't get the information we want, it's a process that I feel is missing. Is this third-party independent review for what it's worth? And I understand what you're saying, that if you subcontracted that out to 2 different bodies and they came up with differing opinions, what then? But that's a hypothetical. That process at least should be followed.
I don't dispute it. The LeBlanc inquiry was pretty clear that they did indeed suggest that any public procurement, any contract entered into over $50 million does require oversight. Now, what they did not say is exactly what that oversight should look like. So, whether it be Carl Smith and Jennifer Williams and Dennis Mahoney, and now with the 3-person oversight panel, the problem that I have with the 3-person panel is that they are confined to exactly what's in the MOU. Because if we're talking about best deal and scenarios into the future that could be considered in this contract, like price elasticity, what happens if there's a dramatic change in the price of hydroelectricity? They're not really fully briefed in this MOU. Then they talk about things like the term itself. I mean, there's not even a water management agreement as far as I can tell. So, to not be able to consider not only price elasticity, but what happens if into the future, and that's a big if there's some sort of free flow of energy across an east-west energy corridor. For that not to be considered in some form or fashion in a final contract seems a little bit odd when we're talking about something that's 75 years in length.
Exactly, Patty. So you're bringing up a bunch of holes in the MOU that you drive a Mack truck through. And yet Premier Hogan is saying that this thing is the best thing since sliced bread, and it's the major election issue. And if people don't vote for the Liberals, the whole thing is probably going to fall. And so that alone, I just can't go along with that that reasoning, and I think that Premier Hogan should probably revisit his thought process on that, because it is the biggest election issue we have, and it just needs a little more attention. That's what I'm saying.
Well, since the Atlantic Accord, the most impactful agreement that we're going to enter into, possibly. You know, as opposed to me put it to John Hogan or Premier Hogan, I think that question is best put to Tony Wakeham. I guess his response to what Hogan had to say and what his party's thoughts are at this moment in time, that would be a bit more interesting to me, because if you ask the Premier, he's just going to reiterate what he's already said. So maybe we'll see if Tony Wakeham's interested or available, because there's a lot of stuff that has to be considered here, including, of course, the Upper Churchill. And again, just to remind folks, the complexity of this deal, which makes it difficult for me to wrap my mind around it in full, is we're not just talking about an additional 4,000 megawatts, which would be the entire Churchill River upgrade of 4,000 megawatts, including the Upper Churchill and Gull, but there's also 2 transmission projects here. So we talk about being relieved of any liabilities regarding Gull, cost overruns or otherwise, but not the same thing can be said for transmission projects. So when we talk about referendums and what have you, my God, there's 4 big projects tied up in 30 pages worth of MOU. That's a lot to wrap your mind around and sink your teeth into.
I agree, and you're right. Tony Wakeham needs to come out with more information about what he intends to do if elected with the MOU. Just saying that he's going to take a pause is not enough. He really needs to lay more detail on the table about how he plans to proceed.
Absolutely, and we're happy to put that question to him right on the program.
Well, that's it for me. Thanks, Patty.
Appreciate your time, Jeff. Thank you. All right, there we go. Let's get a break in. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line 2. George, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. First-time caller here.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Imagine my surprise when someone tried to set fire to my house in town overnight. It was about 4 a.m. or so, and I thought I smelled wildfire smoke, so I didn't pay any attention to it. If I'd paid better attention, I might have caught him in the act. They burned up some of the deck floorboards, some of the drainage pipe we had installed, and the heat started affecting some of the siding, but it burned itself out. Thank goodness. And we can thank the rain for that we got, that downpour the other day. Otherwise, I don't know what would have happened.
Holy smokes.
And I'll tell you, the neighbors are upset. Our neighborhood is on fire. The fire department came by. We're still waiting for the police. Not going to criticize them. I'm sure they're busy, because the fire guys told us there were a couple of incidents nearby in Pleasantville last night as well. We are not out of the woods with these wildfires, because the wild ones in our city are setting some of them.
Well, I mean, we saw a young fellow arrested here in St. John's there last week or the week before, whenever it was, for purposely setting fires in the downtown area. So this is madness. Any earthly idea who did it? Like, do you have a running beef with someone who may have been responsible?
No chance of that, because we're from a ways, and we haven't had time to set any grudges with anybody here. Love it here. Love the province. Love the people. This seems random, especially since we heard that there were a couple of other incidents not too far away, same night, right? It's probably just a wahoo, but I'll tell you something. People are furious here. A text message I got this morning from a neighbor said, "We've put up with a lot in our neighborhood over the years, but setting fire to someone's house with their family asleep inside is crossing a line."
It's evil.
It's absolutely evil, and all of a sudden, not just my household, but I'm sure my immediate neighborhood has a new number one issue in the upcoming elections, and that's crime and punishment. And I'll tell you, punishment needs to be emphasized just as much as crime.
No doubt. Well, I mean, there's still a province-wide fire ban in place, let alone the fact that arson is already and always will be illegal. But we've heard that, even so far as the fines go, like for someone, I guess fines don't trouble anybody who's as criminally leaning as someone who's willing to light your house on fire, which is just mind-bogglingly scary. So I don't know what we do about it, but first offense, $50,000. and straight to prison you go. I don't know what the status is of the young fellow who got arrested in St. John's, but where to from here? So hopefully the RNC have something for you when they finally arrive at your home. And then I guess it's the concept that we all have to be protectors of our own neighborhood in the form of neighborhood watches or what have you. You see something suspicious, even if people think, oh, maybe, be a lot of paranoid calls to law enforcement. Hey, there's nothing paranoid about waking up to find out that your deck was lit on fire.
That's right, sir. And I agree with you on the suggested punishments. I'm not sure what else we could do other than gather ourselves together.
Yeah, I mean, once again, if we're talking about big investigations into the potential arson root cause of some of the big wildfires, and investigations are ongoing, and let's hope that they're exhaustive and comprehensive. Same thing when it comes to these types of fires. Somebody knows something. There's not one person running around under the cloak of secrecy and blending in with the darkness and does this of their own accord without anybody else knowing. People know what's going on out there. Somebody knows if one of these fires was set by someone purposefully. Somebody knows. Somebody knows who set your deck on fire last night. There's no doubt about it. In the world of pyromania, not only do they take glee in the pain that they cause and to see the rush of the fire department to come and try to extinguish a fire, but they also take great pleasure in telling someone about it. So somebody knows. And if you are that person, don't be so naive to think that you owe that so-called friend of yours any sort of protection or privacy here. He or she is a criminal and deserves to be treated like that and no better.
Totally agree. Thanks for your time, Patty.
I appreciate yours, George. Let me know what happens with the police, if you don't mind.
Will do, sir.
Okay, good man. All right, bye-bye. I was like, what? Let's keep going. Line number 1. Bill, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty, how you doing?
Okay this morning. How about you?
Not bad. It's going to be hard for me to upstage those last two callers.
Boy, oh boy. Yeah. What's on your mind?
I'm a cabin owner in a little community outside of St. John's. And I got a complaint about Newfoundland Power. My power went out a couple of years ago, and it was no fault to my cabin, but it was a fault to Newfoundland Power. And I put in a complaint, and I wrote to Newfoundland Power. And first of all, I want to explain that the customer service representatives and all the frontline light and power people, absolutely fantastic. And I give my hats off to those people that work out in the cold and the wet, the men and women that work in the cold and the wet, and the customer service representatives. My complaint is about my little cabin that my mother and father built from nothing, like every other Newfoundlander. And we had power hooked up to the cabin, and the power went out. And I wrote a letter to Newfoundland Power. Here's my letter, and I quote, "Good day. I am contacting you in relation to a complaint of a power outage and damages that resulted at my property at Trinity Bay, my cottage at Broad Lake is regularly checked on, and on or about December 28th, I was updated by my contacts that the power was out. They checked the cottage and discovered that all the meat and seafood had thawed in both the chest freezer and the fridge and freezer. It also appeared that the power had been out for some time, quote, a month or longer. They checked the cabin and all electrical within the cabin was fine, other than no power. Under further investigation, they determined that the fuse/disconnect had blown on the power poles, which was not contained within my property. I checked online and it showed a power outage at the cabin. I immediately called customer relations and spoke with the male service representative who advised, after reviewing my account, that the meter reader had reported Newfoundland Power, quote, that there was no power to the meter. I then noted that both November and December were, quote, estimated. Due to no inclement weather during these months, in my opinion, it would be reasonable to determine that the power was out for 2 months. I later spoke with a female customer service representative who advised that a supervisor would contact me, and she went on to state that they would determine who or what is responsible for the outage. Excuse me, I got a cold. On December 29th, a service crew attended Newfoundland Powerball and replaced the fuse/disconnect, plus the transformer. Quote, it was old, end quote.
So I'm speaking with the person who sent me the actual email response from Newfoundland Power, right?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because there's two different names.
Yeah.
So where to from here then, Bill?
Can I finish my email that I sent to Newfoundland Power?
Sure, go ahead.
I would suggest it was the original equipment from the early 90s. On January 9th, I did speak with the supervisor who was uninformed and needed to conduct her investigation. She stated, quote, I will call you tomorrow. January 16th, 10 days later, I still hadn't heard from her. So I decided to call with no answer. She didn't leave a message. She called shortly thereafter, and after a quick, frank conversation, she denied my claim. I am now moving forward next steps providing Newfoundland Power by the civilian. So, under Newfoundland Power Rules and Regulations, Newfoundland Power Rules and Regulations, Section 14, Company Liability. The company shall not be liable. Newfoundland Powers. I think every Newfoundlander who owns a little small cabin in any property should know this. Newfoundland Power Rules and Regulations, Section 14, Company Liability, quote, the company shall not be liable for any failure to supply service for cause beyond reasonable control, nor shall it be liable for any loss, damage, or injury caused by the use of services resulting from any cause beyond the reasonable control of the company, end quote. I suggest to you that Newfoundland Power is liable for the damages and expenses for the following facts. One, Newfoundland Power became aware of the power outage, reported to it a month or two prior. Two, failure to maintain regular maintenance on the power supplied to my property. As a result, there was a power outage. Three, failures to replace old, outdated electrical equipment, fuse/disconnect transformer, etc. Period. And in conclusion, is my respectful submission that the failure of power to my property and the subsequent damage were in fact within the reasonable control of your company, Newfoundland Power. The failure was not because of an intervening incidents such as a motor vehicle damaging a power pole or an act of God such as a storm damage, but the failure of component parts within the power delivery infrastructure. These were not newly installed parts that failed without explanation, but parts that likely were well past their service life and ought to have been replaced sooner. My loss was sustained because your organization, Newfoundland Power, has failed to properly maintain the means by which it's delivered to my property. It is my respectful submission that this type of failure is in fact within the reasonable control of your company. As such, my loss should not be borne by you.
Yeah, it's hard to understand how they're so easily deflecting any responsibility or liability. You didn't do anything wrong.
Bingo, exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, some power's going to go out sometimes. So we know that to be true, whether it be a transformer blows or a pole gets knocked down or what have you. But the important part of that is that we get report of outages, so we do what we need to do. So if it was you in your cabin and Newfoundland Power told you there's an issue with the transformer or whatever, and the power's going to be out, it's going to be out for an extended amount of time, then you could act accordingly. Then you could go rescue the stuff out of your freezer or whatever else needs to be done.
Exactly, but there was none of that. There was no inclement weather at the time. There was no storms at the time. it was the infrastructure that Newfoundland Power had put in, which the pole is 175 yards away from my house.
Yeah.
And I called the meter company, Itron Meters. I said, okay, if there's a power failure, do you have a backup supply? No. If the power dies, it's because of the hydro company. So I reached out. Go ahead.
No, I'm soon going to have to leave the conversation, but I'll give you the floor for another few seconds before I do have to go.
Okay.
Would you like to add anything else, Bill?
No, but Newfoundland Power they kind of shut me down. They just let it go.
Yeah, it must be nice to be able to just shirk responsibility when it's absolutely within your control. Now, I'll go back to my summary point. If people are informed in a timely fashion, whether it be a scheduled outage and or unexpected outage, then we can all act accordingly. I mean, that's the most important part here is the communication piece. Bill, I wish you good luck in the fight with Newfoundland Power, and I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 3. Doc, you're on the air. Dennis?
Oh, Paddy.
Good morning.
How are you?
Okay, you?
Good. Not bad, boy. Wanted to talk about the MOU, Paddy.
Sure.
You mentioned yesterday, I think I heard, and correctly, you mentioned about how if we are going to understand or even have a future, we have to know about our past. And that's true. It's very true when it comes to Churchill Falls, the MOU, and the future. And being a historian professionally, aside from being a politician municipally, a lot of people in this province have no idea of the importance of the year 2041. And I carried out a casual poll myself back a few months ago, I guess. In my travels around the city, I asked people of different ages why the year 2041 was important to Newfoundland Labrador. And I would say the percentage that I got of people who knew about anything about 2041 was probably 10%. And they were amazed when I told them at that time that that was the year that the original Churchill Falls Agreement with Quebec came to an end, and the Newfoundland Labrador government, then had to go on with a new contract when it came to Churchill Falls. So then I followed that up by asking people, do you know what happened way back in 1969? Do you know the Churchill Falls? Do you know about the Churchill River? And again, there was a really, really high degree of negativity. Now, I blame that, again, as a teacher of history in high school and coming up through the system, one of the great lacks in the system, and it's still there, is the lack of attention paid to Newfoundland history. Even when I went to school, the only thing, I think in grade 4, we did a little Newfoundland history course, but that was it. And then there was a Newfoundland culture course, and that was it. But the actual knowledge that people have about Newfoundland history, and in particular, the whole MOU and Churchill Falls, and it's frightening. It's really, really low, and that's why a lot of people are really not interested, not following what's happening. And when that happens in the general population, then governments tend to get away with whatever they want to get away with. So come to the present date, and for example, Premier Hogan is saying that the election should be all about the MOU. Well, if he really believes that, he should put the question on the ballot along with the names of the candidates. Do you believe that the government of Newfoundland and Labrador should sign off on the MOU?
Yeah, I believe the
simple as that. And
I think that's a terrible idea.
That's one way to find out. I mean, the election is not only about the MOU. There's a whole lot of things going on in this province in the past number of years, from nursing scandals to land scandals to cabinet ministers trying to fill their pockets secretly, to the behaviour of the government, to the MOU. Yes, that should be there too. But if you really want to find out how the people in Newfoundland and Labrador feel about the MOU and how we have been treated by the Quebec government for the last 70 years, and why are we signing on to a 50-year contract, having gotten abused for 70 years in the old contract? And why would we be so willing as to sit down again and say, well, okay, we will sign a 50-year contract. There's nothing in that contract, aside from the 50 years, aside from the financial obligations, there's nothing in that contract that will allow us to transmit electricity across Quebec on their transmission lines, paying them a fair amount of money for being able to do that. There's nothing, no gain like that in the contract. So we really need to have a third-party analysis of what is in that contract.
Just a couple of things.
And how it is going to affect us and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren for the next 50 years.
Okay.
It's not enough for John Hogan or anybody else to say, full speed ahead, we got to get this done. I mean, one of the questions I've asked myself, and you know the answer, why after all these years of being refused any renegotiation by Quebec, why all of a sudden does Quebec want to open this up and get it signed as quickly as possible?
Gull Island. Okay.
Right.
Just a couple of points. Let me hop in, Dennis. Let me hop in here. Just let me hop in here.
Okay. Hop in.
So, you know why the referendum's a terrible idea? Because of what you just said. How many people would vote against it simply because the other side of the negotiating table is Quebec? Like you just said yourself. People resent what happened. And so would that be a factor inside people's emotional vote? 100%. 2041, one of the most misunderstood dates in this province. So what all that happens in 2041 is we renegotiate price. Equity stake does not change. Nothing changes except for price. So I don't really know what the merit is of waiting until 2041 necessarily, but the province really set themselves up here. They struck a committee to look at exactly that. What are the implications of 2041? They did the work, they did the research, they came up with some sort of conclusion, but they didn't tell us. Don't you think that would have been helpful for public discourse had people been told, based on folks who looked at the implications of the contract and said, here's what 2041 means? Because through your own anecdotal research here, very few people knew what 2041 meant. So without even understanding what that means, how can anybody necessarily understand the reality of this MOU? So that's my summary point, is if people are going to vote no because of Quebec, then...
You're right. I don't agree with everything that you said.
Oh, you don't have to.
It doesn't say that you can't put it on the ballot. But you're right in that a lot of people have no idea, or a lot have no idea of what's going on when it comes to the future of Churchill Falls and the future of Newfoundland and Labrador and the future of the electrical development on the Churchill River. But a lot of people do, and we don't live in a perfect world, so we do have referendums. The whole point of a referendum or putting a question on a ballot is simply to say to people who are voting, look, as well as voting for the candidate, what do you think about the MOU? I mean, we do have an oversight, a 3-person oversight committee. Have you heard anything from that committee? Have you seen any public report?
I have, yeah. So
you have?
Yeah, they've made a couple of releases, and we actually had Dennis Brown on the show after the first one.
They're certainly not out there to communicate to the people what they have found in their analysis so far.
Well,
it's really not. I know, the 3 gentlemen on that committee are excellent. I know all of them. They're very professional. They're very good. But it's not the oversight that would be take place really with an independent committee analysing the deal on behalf of the government of Newfoundland and Labrador.
We'll invite
so
Dennis
that
Brown
we're
back
all
on.
secure in knowing that what we're going to get over the next 50 years, because we're talking about 50 years, what we're going to get is what we should get. And now on top of all that, our friends in Quebec want to do a deal on critical minerals. And again, you have to, I mean,
I got to jump in.
People can say it, and other people can say, you're right. You have to look at the relationship that has taken place between Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador over the last 70 years.
Understood.
To understand why so many people in Newfoundland and Labrador, including myself, are so suspect about what's happening. And we need an oversight committee.
Points understood and taken and repeated. I have to go to the break, Dennis. I appreciate your time.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's go to that break.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go, before we get to the news, line number 6, say good morning to the Executive Director at the Eating Disorder Foundation. That's Paul Toomey. Paul, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you today?
Not too bad, thanks. How about you?
Not too bad at all. It's been a while since we've spoken, so I thought I'd call in this morning, give an update, since tonight is our last night of drive-in bingo for the summer. So we're going to be at Jack Byrne Regional Sport and Entertainment Center with our doors opening at 5:30, bingo starting at 7 o'clock. All proceeds, of course, go to the Eating Disorder Foundation. And tonight, as a farewell and a thank you, our jackpot will be $1,500 rather than the normal $1,000. So we look forward to having a big crowd there tonight. The weather looks great, and we'll also be doing the draw on our, our third quarter 50-50 sweep, which is now getting up around the $1,500, $2,000 mark, with $1,000 perhaps going to the winner. So it should be a big night. We're going to give away a fair amount of money down at Jack Byrne. So hopefully we'll see a big crowd there. And I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who has supported us in the 5 previous bingos and again tonight. It's been a great fundraiser for us, and it certainly it gives us the needed funds to be able to continue to support families throughout this province who are dealing with a serious mental illness that an eating disorder is. So look forward to the continued support on that one.
So give us some idea how much money has been raised over the course of the previous bingos, if you care to share.
Yep, no, I have no problem sharing. We're fairly transparent with that. We've raised upwards of $30,000, and that's the number off the top of my head, Patty. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but our bingos have been well attended this year, and almost wish we'd done a few more. But I think that the number we've done, the 6, is probably where we will stay. So we're raising that kind of money. But the other great thing about the bingo, there's upwards of 200 cars in that parking lot every time we have it. And so it's helping us create awareness and letting more people know who we are and the type of work we do, and that we're available to everybody in this province.
A fair ball. You do great work, that's for sure, Paul. Appreciate the time. Good luck with the final bingo.
I do have one more, if you don't mind.
Quick one.
It'll be very quick. The 14th Annual Concert of Hope at the Arts and Culture Centre on October the 18th. Tickets are on sale at the Arts and Culture Centre. Tickets right now are $35 until August 31st. On September 1st, the price goes to $40. So it's a good chance to get tickets. Masterless Men, Black Gold. 2 great performing groups raising money, all in support of the Eating Disorder Foundation. So encourage people to go to the Arts and Culture Centre website, get your tickets before the weekend.
Good luck with it all. Appreciate the time, Paul.
Thanks, Patty. Appreciate it as always.
Pleasure. Bye-bye. All right, let's get to the news. When we come back, there's a couple of callers there to talk about the Churchill Falls Memorandum of Understanding. Then we're talking the ferry service. And we have another candidate, this time running out Ward 5. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's begin the segment on line number 6. Say good morning to the PC member for Stephenville Port-au-Port, and that's the leader of the official opposition. That's Tony Wakeham. Good morning, Tony. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty. I was listening to your show earlier when you asked it would be nice to have me come on and talk about the MOU in terms of where we are on it and where I am on it. And I thought I would take the opportunity to do that. And I'd like to basically just start off by saying that based on what we know right now, I could not, in good conscience, sign the Liberal deal with Quebec. I want to develop Gull Island. We all want to see Gull Island developed. And I want to ensure that we can actually make sure we electrify the entire Labrador. When I think about the potential for the mining industry, when I think about the potential for other industries to be actually based in Labrador itself, and what this power that we have at our disposal would be able to do to help all that.
Okay, just a few things. I basically said the question about what Premier Hogan said yesterday about the Tories would kill or pause or whatever the deal, that question is probably best for you. So when you say pause it for what and pause it for how long? Knowing that inside of any contractual negotiation, there has to be some sort of agreement on the other side of the table. So what specifically are you proposing here?
So when we used the word pause, it was around the time when there was a Premier's conference, First Minister's conference being held in Ottawa, and the talk was of the National Energy Quarter. So we wanted to make sure that we were at that table and that we were going to be represented at that table and not represented by Quebec. And that was the thought that we had at that time. Look, we should be talking about a national energy quarter here. If the premiers are going to be talking about a national energy quarter, then Newfoundland and Labrador needs to be part of that discussion. And if we're going to have a national energy quarter across this great country of ours, then I want Newfoundland and Labrador to be part of that energy quarter, not simply on the sidelines because we've signed away our power for another 50 years. But those are the issues that are unknown when it comes to this particular deal. We went through an inquiry, the Judge LeBlanc inquiry, that clearly laid out a process and recommendations. And one of them was the independent review process. And I will say that as soon as I become Premier, I will make sure that we send this to the Public Utilities Board for them to lead an independent review. That's what people want to know. They want to make sure that we're actually getting the very best deal possible. And as you know from your listeners and from people who have called in, there have been lots of concerns raised, lots of questions raised. And the best way to get them answered is to have and take the recommendations that were given to us, and let's do that. I don't see anything wrong with that type of process. We should want to be accountable to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador and make sure we're getting the best deal possible.
Tony, you say that we want Gull Island developed. The basic question for me would be, do we? Do we really want to? Because unless there was some sort of partner, whether that be the Fortises of the world or Hydro-Quebec or whoever, I don't think the province is up for another mega development in the world of hydroelectricity if we are the province supporting it financially speaking. Because a couple of things. We have no way of getting it out. You know, we can talk about East-West Energy Corridor, which I do a lot on this program, but of course that conversation is as old as John Diefenbaker. It's never made any pragmatic move forward. So the base question on Gull, do we really want to develop it? Because we have no earthly way of getting the power out of there. I mean, Muskrat Falls is as much a transmission project as it is a power generation project. Right now, that's some of the big risks we face. Having to bring all that power down through the long-range mountains, in this case 2,225 megawatts. There's only a 500 megawatt maritime link. So we can't even develop Gull on our own unless we have a way to get the power out.
I think what we're saying is not different than what you're saying. Is no, I don't think that the province of Newfoundland and Labrador can undertake Gull Island project alone. We need a partner. Most definitely we need a partner. And if that partner is Quebec, then let's negotiate that. But let's not simply turn around and sign a deal that we don't know exactly what's in it. We don't know. We're signing up for 50 years. Right now, we're still committed to paying the mortgage on that property. 60% of Gull Island development will be financed by the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. But we're only keeping 10% of the power. And when I think of Labrador and the opportunities for development of energy and power, and we've all heard those stories, how electricity, the demand for electricity in the world is going to change, it's going to increase. And what are the opportunities right there in Labrador to develop new industries? So let's not be afraid to develop, but let's make sure absolutely that we have a partner. But let's make sure that when we enter into any kind of agreement, that we take the time to do the due diligence. And right now, we have an opportunity here. Let's make sure that this is done with an independent review.
Isn't the Gulf financing the numbers, as I understand them, and I could be wrong? So our equity piece, valued at currently somewhere in and around $3.5 billion, will be paid for by Hydro-Quebec, right?
That is the equity piece, but then there will be a, quote, for lack of a better term, a mortgage taken out for the rest of the project. We will take 60%. Quebec Hydro, I think, has 40%. So one would think that any mortgage that's taken out on this, we will have 60% of that debt will come to Newfoundland and Labrador. But the issue here has to be about not the next election, but let's talk about the next generation. I mean, we're talking about signing a deal for 50 years with the province of Quebec, and we're sitting here today. Many people in Newfoundland and Labrador are asking the same questions. How do we know that this is the best deal for us? That's going to impact not just the next 4 years, which is what the Liberal government seems to be concerned about, but the next 50 years. And the only people that are telling us this is a great deal, but these are the people that negotiated the deal. Why are they afraid to send this to the Public Utilities Board, to allow this process to have been reviewed independently? I would argue if they had done that since day one, that review would be completed by now. But no, they're refusing. So why are they hiding? What's not being made available to the people in Newfoundland and Labrador? What's there that we don't understand? So, we have a process. We have recommendations that were made by Judge LeBlanc. We should be following them.
A quick question on the PUB. Would that be just adding another middleman to any so-called oversight? Because they don't have the horsepower. That's not what they do. They'd simply have to hire someone else, whether it be Deloitte & Touche or, remember, Muskrat was Manitoba Hydro, and then Liberty comes in. So would they just be another entity hiring someone else?
But they're the independent body, and they would be the ones that would have to basically contract with someone to do the review. But that's the whole piece about this. We have to have an independent analysis on this. That's why this is so important. This is not about the Liberal government or the PC government or the NDP party. It's about making sure that if we're going to put pen to paper, we ought to ensure that we've got the jobs protected, that we've got our resources protected, and that we're getting the value that Newfoundlanders and Labradors deserve for the next generation.
Fair ball. Appreciate the time, Tony.
Thank you, Paddy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, it's Tony Wakeham, leader of the PCs, a PC member for Steamville Port to Port. Let's take a break. When we come back, let's see who's next. Maybe PJ to talk about the MOU. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 4. PJ, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Wanted to talk about the MOU briefly. I see Premier Legault was in your province yesterday, but didn't take any media questions. I mean, some of the questions that could be posed to him could be related to, for example, the government of Quebec is applying for subsidy with the federal government for a new transmission line from Quebec down to the U.S. as a nation-building project. So it's going to be very interesting now to see if that makes the short list with Michael Sabier as the Secretary of the Cabinet, for example.
Yeah, well, actually, Michael Sabia was involved in these trade talks yesterday with Minister LeBlanc, and Howard Lutnick, I assume, was the representative from the United States. So, yeah, Sabia is in the middle of it. Look, with the federal government, and you make an interesting point here, with all of the talk of electrification, whether it be electric vehicles or electrification of public buildings and all the rest of it, the federal government needs to be involved. They can't then just, shrug their shoulders and say, well, a lot of these things are provincial jurisdiction. No, it's being led by federal policy. So consequently, things like building transmission should be partly federal responsibility.
Yes, but maybe across Canada, but not going north-south. The Quebec government is going to be using federal funding to build a transmission line that's just going to enrich their coffers in Quebec. They're looking for subsidy to build a line under a national building project. So let's stay tuned to see if that meets the short list. But interestingly enough, just 2 days ago, Quebec Hydro put out their financial results. You might find this interesting, Patty, is that they've declared a net income for the first 6 months of this year of $2.3 billion net income, mind you, and that is after already investing $3.3 billion in the same period. So when you talk about Gull Island and Quebec Hydro investing $3.5 billion in Gull Island, that is no challenge for them. This is the kind of numbers that company deals with. It's a cash cow. And one final point on this, their action plan at Hydro-Quebec is called Action Plan 2035, towards a decarbonized and prosperous Quebec. Very interesting. But in there is also an interesting point because it says how they earn some of this money. They're selling electricity to the U.S. at 16 cents a kilowatt. And today, I believe they pay less than 2 cents for it. That's the profit they're making on Newfoundland, right?
Yeah, the Upper Churchill Power is currently 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour. And, I mean, they have contracts, for instance, in one of the New England states. I think it's Connecticut. It's 25 years at 5 cents a kilowatt hour. Of course, they sell it to a utility there who then makes their profit on top. But Hydro-Quebec and Newfoundland Labrador Hydro, not even in the same conversation. I mean, Hydro-Quebec is one of the largest hydropower producers in the world. They have like 61 generating stations. They have installed capacities like 37, 38 gigawatts. Storage capacity in reservoirs is somewhere in the neighborhood of 180 terawatts. So, I mean, we're not even talking about the same thing here. They got, 680 or 690 dams inside Hydro-Quebec.
Yeah, it's apples and oranges in a bit, but keep in mind, Labrador is generating this electricity. It's all beautiful green energy. And, Emera in Nova Scotia, where I am, they're taking advantage of it too, right? They're getting Muskrat Falls energy. But now Emera has applied to the Canadian Energy Regulator to ship electricity down to the U.S. themselves. Yeah. This is a first-time step for them. They've never done it before, but they have an application in now, and they're going to send the electricity via New Brunswick down to the States. So that's Newfoundland energy, because Emera in Nova Scotia does not generate enough energy to supply this province on itself. So they're using that green energy, marketing it down to the States, all doing markup on what they're paying out of Newfoundland. Well,
they're not paying anything. Yeah. For starters, they have some equity stakes in some of the transmission, which I have no earthly idea why that's the case. And we owe Emera, or Nova Scotia Power, in and around 21% of the installed capacity at Muskrat. Why? Because they built the $1.5 billion maritime link. So they are paying for it in that form, which is a pretty sweet deal for them. Emera has tried in the United States. So has Hydro-Quebec. What?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, but the difference in Nova Scotia is that Emera is still burning coal here in few of their plants, which seems ridiculous in 2025, where they have this green energy. But so be it. That's what they're doing, and they're getting set up. They're getting approval out of the federal government to start transmitting electricity down to the states. So, at the time that's going on, with so much going on in the world and whatever, that these companies are doing things, and people are busy, not paying much attention to what's going on, and it's going to be too late. But I'm going to just follow up on what the opposition leader said. I think he's got a good point. It's that they need to educate people, because Quebec claims that they're going to have this 6 cent kilowatt for 50 years. This has to be put to a test, because the cheapest alternative today is nuclear. And nuclear right now costs 16 cents in 2025. So the deal is so lopsided, it's ridiculous to even believe in. So you have to realize this is why Quebec Hydro wants to ram this deal through. And the Newfoundland Liberals don't seem to be able to be putting up much of a fight on it. So I just want to summarize. I think I agree with a lot of other callers. We need a fully independent review. I don't think that the three-person panel now is going to justify it. And I think we need to do that because it's such a long-term contract, and turn it into an election issue. But the PCs need to educate the people, not put a referendum, but educate people. Imagine, like in Quebec, for example, today versus electricity in Newfoundland. If you're paying $300 a month electricity in Newfoundland, in Quebec they only pay $100. So that should drive home to people who are paying bills every month how lucrative an arrangement they have had all these decades.
Oh, I think people realize that. Just a couple of quick points. Like, Emera doesn't need the federal government's permission to sell power into the United States. And in fact, Emera and Hydro-Quebec, not that long ago, they were trying to put power into the state of Maine. Residents of Maine had a referendum, and they said no. And so that went by the wayside. So nobody needs permission to sell into the states. It's whether or not they need or want federal support to build capacity, I think, is the conversation.
No, for when you ship electricity, export electricity, yes, the Canadian Energy Regulator, which is the previously National Energy Board, has to approve it. They had applications in. It went in the middle of end of June, and they had till July 21st to be pose it. But it's going through, and they'd have to get regulation to approve this. That activity.
Yeah, but isn't the only question that entity asks is about monopoly? Because there is a concern in the United States. They will not deal with the monopoly insofar as provision of power. So isn't that the only question being asked at that level?
No, I think they're just looking for the permission to export electricity. I mean, you keep in mind, Nova Scotia is burning coal. I mean, you know, we're in a climate change disaster at our doorstep, and Nova Scotia continues to burn coal to generate electricity. The only province that I'm aware of that's still doing it, and they're allowed to do it till 2030. So, you know, like it brings up the point is that it's exporting good energy down to the states at our cost, or environmental costs, and whatever.
Fair enough. The reason why we were able to secure federal loan guarantees, of which there's been 3, is because of exactly what you just said. When they called it a nation-building project, it was in an effort to help Nova Scotia get off coke and coal-fired power generation. You're 100% right. The first one was $5 billion from the Harper Conservatives. Then it was $3 billion of the Trudeau Liberals. Then another $1 billion federal loan guarantee plus another $1 billion loan. And why? Because of exactly what you just mentioned.
Yeah, but I mean that Emera thing is on a side thing. It just shows that the energy, that green energy, is so valuable in this day and age. And go back to the Churchill Falls arrangement, is that there's no doubt that there's a lot of money left on the table, and the PCs should harness that and say, like, what would Newfoundland do with an extra $1 billion a year? Forget what's in the current agreement. Top it up. When you have a Quebec Hydro making $2.3 billion each 6 months, there's money left on the table, hands down. So I hope that the Conservatives can get an independent review and get Newfoundland do what's right with that green energy, because it's going to be very valuable. How can you imagine what's going to be valuable in 10 years or 20 years? And here Quebec trying to lock it in for 50? Unheard of. Nobody signs those type of contracts. Too long.
We did. We already did. 1969. PJ, enjoyed the conversation. I appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break for the news. Right on time. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 1. Will, you're on the air. Hi, Will.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. You're on the air.
Yeah, it's Wilson Murphy calling. I want to make a comment on that Churchill Falls thing.
Okay.
We still have an option open, and we must let somebody know. I don't hear too many people talking about it, but we can't overlook it. We have the power. I know we don't have the capacity, like you said earlier, for most Stress Falls, but we do put power in Nova Scotia. And when that happened, Quebec tried to buy New Brunswick Power, if you remember.
I do.
As far as I'm concerned, there was one reason for that: to block Newfoundland again.
I suppose it could be that. There's also access to the major markets as well. So, yeah, it's probably both.
Now, the guy that was just on there from Nova Scotia said a mayor was going through New Brunswick for now, but all we need in New Brunswick is the right guy to get in to agree to sell the power to Quebec. But anyway, as far as I'm concerned, that was the reason for that. But we got a cable going to Nova Scotia, so if worse comes to worse, we can put another one from Yarmouth over to Bar Harbour, Maine. And if we need some extra power, I think you said something about 500 megawatts or something in Churchill Falls.
No, the Maritime Link can carry 500 megawatts.
Yeah, so that needs to be increased. But we're talking about 50 years. And as far as I'm concerned about it, it's better to do nothing than give it away, which is what we did the last 50. And it appears to me like we're going to do it for 50 more.
I just want to pursue the Maritime Link conversation. Did you say that should have been, for starters, it probably should have been 1,000 right off the get-go. But why would we build another one? Because we don't really have any power to give anybody.
Well, we got it up in Churchill Falls, and you can do a lot of things in 50 years rather than give it away.
Yeah, we're ever only going to get X amount of power from Churchill Falls because capacity is not changing. So unless they expand operations at Churchill Falls, which is part of the plan, we're always going to have the same equity stake. So the additional power that we can get from the Upper Churchill, based on the MOU, is simply the Labrador recall block, which goes from 300 to 1,200 megawatts. So I don't think we need to build anything. Like, unless Gull is developed, we don't need to build anything to get power out of here because we don't have any power to sell to anybody. In fact, we have to add capacity here. They're talking about 150 megawatt generator at Holyrood.
Well, we must have something. The Premier of Quebec is here now, and he's not here for Newfoundland. He's here for Quebec.
Of course he is.
So what's he here for if we got none?
Well, the additional power that they're talking about is expanding operations at the Upper Churchill, but most notably for Hydro-Quebec is developing Gull Island. So that's the extra power, but that's yet to be built. So my statement is that we don't have power to sell anybody at this moment in time. Could we or would we into the future if Gull Island got built? Sure, but today we just don't have any power to sell anybody.
No, but we got to look at the future. Signing a document for 50 years. We did that before. We know what it was all about. We're getting nothing. We got an asset. We're getting nothing for. Probably costing us money to own it right now.
To own which development? Upper or Gull or?
To own Churchill Falls. Because you know as well as I do, Quebec thinks they own Labrador, right?
Which is nonsense, yeah.
They think that. We ain't going to change their mind on that one. As far as I'm concerned, this country is supposed to be, I'll call it brother and sister country, where we help each other. Didn't Quebec block the pipeline from Western Canada going to St. John, New Brunswick?
Yeah, there's a bunch of issues regarding Energy East. And yes, if we're talking about Quebec being a problem there, it was most specifically Denis Coderre, who used to be a federal member of Parliament. At the time, he was the mayor of Montreal. Yeah.
So if we had a federal government with any guts, they said to go back, listen, our little brother or little sister in Newfoundland got an asset they wants to sell. And they're coming through Quebec with it. But the federal government got no guts either.
Well, as it pertains to...
There's a lot of people in Quebec, and you know as well as others, that don't even want to be in Canada.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite the sentiment it once was. And now I think we can replace Quebec separatism with Alberta separatism, which is mind-boggling.
Yep. I don't blame Alberta. Alberta got an asset to sell, and they can't get across Canada with it.
Well, they can.
There's something wrong with that, too.
But they can, though. What do you mean?
Well, they said once it gets to the Quebec border, that's done. That's as far as it comes, wasn't it, Quebec? They said they couldn't go across the St. Lawrence River with it because there's a pipe already in the river and it's going to interfere with that.
The only thing I would say to it is, number one, me and you and Beth Fagan and everyone listening to this program, we just bought Alberta a $30 billion pipeline. Like, I don't know how that gets lost in the shuffle. And at this moment in time, there was 0 proposals for an east-west pipeline. Now, if the Prime Minister follows through with what he said on the campaign trail about the so-called east-west energy corridor, and once again, we've been talking about that as long ago as John Diefenbaker. So unless that comes to pass, and no one's going to propose a pipeline until they know they can get the regulatory approvals. That's for sure.
Well, the first thing we need is the people need control. I mean, something like Switzerland has. Here, you vote them in, they do what they like, and nobody says nobody can do anything. They're there for 4 years or 24 years. Over in Switzerland, they vote the same as we do. And when they vote them in, if they're no good, they get rid of them right away. They don't have to wait 4 years or 50 years. We've seen a lot of things happen here recently. I don't believe, even though we're supposed to believe it's a dead issue now, that $48,000 gift. Now, if you get fired today, and I hope you don't, and I don't think you will, but you won't be getting $48,000 if you get fired.
I'm not.
You won't be getting it if you quit either.
No, if I quit, I get nothing. If I get fired, I do get something.
Yeah. Do you get anything if you get fired?
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a lot of issues. We got a lot of issues. We need.
Do we ever?
And I just want to mention that because we must let Quebec know, even though they try to block us in New Brunswick, we still got an option within the next 50. And if the Liberals, and I'll tell you this, I vote Liberal, PC, and nowadays I don't know if I'm going to vote anymore. There's no good voting for the man. If you were running for politics now and I'm going to vote for you, I'm going to say right up front, you're not going to do much with it, Paddy Boy, because you've got 15 or 16 more cabinet ministers up against you, so you can't do nothing. You got to have everybody. You got to have some good people working for the people. And if the Liberals signs this deal with Quebec, they might as well walk out the House of Assembly now. Well, I can guarantee you, and call me back if I'm wrong, and they're probably not going to go in anyway this time. But I can guarantee you, if they sign that, they're doomed for staying in politics.
Well, you won't have to worry about me doing anything, because I won't be running.
Most Newfoundlanders don't want to hear tell this, whatever they got. Nobody don't know what it's all about anyway. Another one like Buddy said there from Nova Scotia, 2% for Newfoundland and 16% for Quebec.
Yeah, that's not exactly the math.
The problems in Canada and we're the poorest, resource-wise.
I appreciate the call, Will. I'm going to take my final break of the morning. You're always welcome.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye. All right, let's take that break. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Bigland FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Say good morning to Danny Earl. He's running in Ward 5 in the upcoming municipal election here in the city of St. John's. Good morning, Danny. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to the residents of Ward 5.
Happy to do it.
Paddy, before I talk, I just want to let the residents of Ward 5 know I'm not here to disrespect anyone's son or daughter or husband or father. I'm here to give the residents of Ward 5 a strong and powerful voice and to hold the city of St. John's accountable for my community. Paddy, 4 years ago when I ran, I came up a little bit too short by 14 votes, I believe. There was important issues on the table like Mile 1, snow clearing in Southlands. I'm delighted that Mile 1 has a new hockey team coming to town. I'm over the moon about it. But the issue seemed to have fallen by the wayside about the subsidies and all that good stuff. The city of St. John's seems to believe that snow clearing in the last 2 years has been more than up to par in Southlands area. I'm here to tell you it's because we had really 2 softer winters. We got safety issues in and around our communities. The lack of crosswalks, Kilbride, Southlands, the Goulds. Not sure what it takes to paint the line on the road, but that's not for me to decide now. We got streets in my ward here now that are unserviced, unpaved, wells gone dry. I'm not quite getting it. We have a project happening here now in my community in the Goulds I'm not going to talk positive or negative about it, other than I'm not so sure that the city has put any thought into the safety aspect of what they're doing here now. I spoke to a gentleman over in Southlands yesterday evening who told me that him and his wife and his dog live in a big, beautiful home in Southlands. He pays his taxes. We can all appreciate what a tax bill is over in Southlands or in any part of the city. And he told me that he used to be exempt from a second water tax in his home because his apartment wasn't rented. The last 2 years, they decided that no, he needs to pay that extra $700 bill. And if he wants to be exempt from it, he has to go to City Hall, get a permit, pay $200, remove the breaker from his stove downstairs just to be exempt from the extra $700 property tax that the city is passing on to him. When we got people in homes here in the city, 7, 8, 9 people living in one household, so you can appreciate the water that's consumed in that household, but they only get one property tax. I got a lady here in the Golds in my ward. Patty, you're going to hear the emotion in my voice now. This lady, her well ran dry. I was able to get her a water toast just so that she can flush her toilet. Her husband had a stroke. He has severe mobility issues. She can now flush her toilet and wash her dishes, but they don't drive, so they need to leave their home for this gentleman to get a wash. I got another 75-year-old lady in my ward who I videoed our meeting. I was going to use it as a tool in my campaign trail, but it was so hurtful and painful, I decided that it was wrong of me to use this to get the upper hand on my opponent. But what I did assure her was, if I'm not successful, I will bring this video to the table at City Hall and let these people see that this 75-year-old lady told me at her kitchen table that after her 2 small grandchildren get a wash, she referred to it as dirty water. I'll refer to it as recycled water. She gets a bath after her 2 small grandchildren. She cannot get a return phone call from the powers to be. Paddy Daly, my friend, I'm here to tell you that that's wrong. We got so many issues that could be easily fixed if people return phone calls and if City Hall we use this 311 as a tool. I'm here to tell you, I heard it on Open Line a few months back about a camper and a truck down at the end of Shoal Bay Road, a pristine area in my ward with the very beginning of the East Coast Trail, where thousands and thousands of people come to my community to experience. There was a burnt-out camper and a burnt-out truck at the end of that road, and the people at the City of St. John's couldn't get the job done. Our government was contacted. They couldn't get the job done, and I just want to let the people of Ward 5 know it's not there no more. The job got done. It's cleaned up, and it's gone. Patty, I'm tired of hearing the can getting kicked down the road. I want my community to know that I am here to fight for Shea Heights, Southside Road, Kilbride, Southlands, Brookfield Plains, the Goulds, right to Middlepan. I'm hearing what you're saying at the doors, and I'm here to tell you, even if I'm not successful, 4 years ago, I just went by the wayside. I took my tail, and I went home. I'm here to tell you now, even if I do not get into City Hall, I will still advocate on your behalf, and I'm going to be a thorn in the side of the fine people down at the City of St. John's.
Good on you, Donnie. I appreciate the time. Good luck out there.
Thank you, Paddy.
You're welcome, sir. Bye-bye. It's Donnie Earl, running on Ward 5. We'll get one more on this morning. Let's try line number 6. Deborah, you're on the air.
Hello. Hi, Paddy Daly.
Hi there.
Hi, Mr. Daly. I just wanted to know, to let you know the safety on the highway. Right, because I took the wrong turn, almost went to TC Highway, going to Roach's Line, right?
Okay.
Because I wanted to say the condolence to my brother. Because my brother passed away, right? Cancer.
I'm sorry for your loss.
And this was June the 7th of 2025, right? 58-year-old. He died of stage 4 cancer, right? Down in Marystown, okay? With his wife. And he left him behind his buddy, Glenn Lewis, right? I remember. And they banned it pretty bad, right? They called him bro, and they told him everything and what he went through and life and stuff. Confidential stuff that the whole family didn't know, right? And he didn't want to break the trust. And he told me one thing. He said he was afraid to die of cancer, right? That's all. But he knows all kinds of stuff about my brother that the whole family didn't know, or not even his own wife. He's crying there now because I'm speaking about it on live on radio. And I went through abuse myself, which you already know. And thanks to you, you put me in the right direction, and I got my counseling, okay? With that one Kim Griffin, right? Remember? So thank you very much for that. Okay.
No problem. So it also says on my...
I was just wondering if you heard if we can get transportation there, or go in the Discovery Center and have a race. They're all about Whitburn, all over the Bar Wharf.
I remember talking to you about that, and I guess the short answer is no. I don't know of any option for transportation for that particular reason.
Yeah, because they approved it, right? But I can't get over there, so I got no car. Legal, right? No license, no insurance, nothing, right?
Yeah, so I'm not really sure how to help on that front. I did have a look around to see if there were some options. I came up dry or short, so I apologize for that.
Yeah. So how are you? Good, are you?
How am I?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm all right. A bit worn out, but doing okay.
Yeah, you put up a lot of stuff on radio, don't you, Bob?
Sometimes. Yep.
Yeah, you put up weird kind of stuff people's eyes. Something I cut them off because I'm supposed to say that stuff.
Yeah, I try not to be in the business of cutting people off, but...
Yeah, no, but you just tell them, like, you're not allowed to say that stuff, right?
Well,
no names, no felonies and that, right?
Some of that's for their protection, to be honest with you, when we talk about specific names of companies or individuals.
Right. Yeah, true. Yeah. Because that's what it is, public, for, say, your opinion about stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah, people can get themselves in hot water. I mean, just for the general listening public, the reason about, don't say specific names is if, for starters, we don't know the entire story. And secondly, if something is not accurate, the person who says it maybe just finds himself, the next thing they know, getting a letter in the mail with a cease and desist or a letter from a lawyer saying, we're taking you to court. So that's kind of it.
Better off you saying no, and then you won't get no trouble, hey?
Sometimes, 100%. I do have to get to the end of the program here this morning, Deborah, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you. So I just want to know, thank you very much, Father.
No problem
I just
at all.
want the government put some pole lights there, right?
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Off we go, Deborah. You stay in touch. Take good care. Okay, there we go. All right, so Verna, I know she wants to talk. Me and Verna have talked many times, and I'm happy to have Verna on tomorrow. I believe she said she has time, does she, Beth? Just to talk about the Belle Island Ferry Service. Joan was also there to talk about the Upper Churchill Memorandum of Understanding. And I think, thankfully, more and more people are starting to take up the conversation. There's just too much on the line to simply just say, okay, we're on a fast track to an aggressive timeline of next April. There's a lot to discuss. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. And yes, we will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, Beth Fagan, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.